Welcome, everybody. My name is Sally Lipsky, and I'm one of the leaders of Plant-Based Pittsburgh. And we welcome you. And just before we start, Brittany Giroudi, I have to tell her, so we're using her Zoom, but there is a spread in Health Science magazine today. It's a National Health Association, and it has, I should have it open here, but it has Brittany's recipes for pasta salad, watermelon, cherry beet tomato, and it has a little profile of Brittany in there about how she became plant-based. And if you're interested, the National Health Association, to get the magazine, you have to be a member, but it's like $25 or $35.
I think it's $35 for the year.
Okay, they went up to $35, and if you get a membership, be sure to let them know that put Brittany's name down because you want to be starting a membership now. You'll get this. Okay, so let me introduce our special presenter today. Oh, before I start, let me just say, if everybody could go on mute after I'm finished talking, I'll be on mute too. And if you have questions, you can write your questions in the chat box, and Brittany and I will be monitoring the chat box, trying to get to your questions. And there'll probably be time at the end for more questions. Okay, so our special cook today is Alexandra Newman, and she is the founder of Resolve Health and Fitness. And you can go on the Facebook or her website. We'll give you information at the end of the class. We will be posting in the Plant-Based Pittsburgh YouTube channel. This is being recorded, so we'll have a link to this and a link to the recipes that Alexandra has so generously going to go through, and she'll give them to you, and I'll have links to Alexandra. So Alexandra is a licensed food for health instructor, and this is through the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And she has earned certificates in plant-based nutrition from the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutritional Studies and in plant-based cooking from the Roxby School. Finally, she's also a certified personal trainer with a specialization in senior fitness from the National Association of Sports Medicine. Welcome, Alexandra. I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Sally. Thanks for that nice introduction. And thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Welcome to my kitchen. I hope tonight will inspire you a little bit in ways that you can use your produce that you're growing in your garden this summer, or maybe you're getting from a CSA, or maybe you just want ideas for fresh summer meals. So I have 3 recipes that I'm going to prepare for you tonight. The first is a pasta with zucchini and roasted tomatoes and garlic. The second will be a fruit salsa sandwich. And last, I'm going to do a Fiesta corn salad. So we're going to start with the pasta. To start this recipe, you're going to roast your garlic and tomatoes. Now, if you've never roasted garlic before, you just take a raw garlic bulb with the paper on it, and you're going to just slice the top off. I always slice it at the wide end, not the pointy end. I hold the pointy end, and then I just take the knife and slice down this way, just a little bit off the top. And that's going to expose the garlic cloves. Now, I'm not going to do that right now because I already have one roasting in the oven. But you would take your garlic that you've sliced the top off of, and you put it in foil, wrap it tightly, and then you would place that on a baking sheet that's lined with parchment paper or maybe a silicone baking pad. And you're going to put that on your baking sheet, and then you're going to add your tomatoes to the same baking sheet. So tonight I have used Roma tomatoes. I really like these. They're small, they're delicious, but you can really use any kind of tomato. You can use heirloom tomatoes, whatever tomatoes you're growing in the garden. You can even use canned tomatoes. I've actually made this recipe before with canned diced tomatoes. You just use a 28-ounce can and you drain them and then just spread the diced tomatoes out on the baking sheet. But tonight what I've done is I've taken Roma tomatoes. I've used about 8 of them. I sometimes use as many as a dozen or sometimes a few fewer. And you just slice them down lengthwise this way. And then you put them skin side down on the baking sheet, skin side down. And then what I do is I sprinkle them with a tablespoon of nutritional yeast and 2 tablespoons of chopped or snipped fresh basil. And then you can add a little salt and pepper if you use salt. Salt's always optional in my recipes. Sprinkle them with a little salt and pepper. And then you're going to roast them in a 350-degree oven for an hour, maybe an hour and 10 minutes. And when they're done, let me show you what they're going to look like. I started this over an hour ago, and this is what it's going to look like. And can you see that? I can't see too well because I'm not spotlighted, but can you see that? So they're going to be a little bit wrinkly and charred, but they don't look exactly like sun-dried tomatoes, but you can definitely see that they have wilted. And then here's my garlic. And what you want to do is just let that cool for a few minutes. The garlic is going to be very hot. So I'm going to open the package and let that start to cool while we get the other ingredients ready. And you can see how the cloves have kind of browned, and they're this is very soft now. They're soft and gooey, and they're going to squeeze. I'm going to be squeezing them right out of there when it's cool. So in the meantime, while your tomatoes and garlic are roasting in the oven, you can get your other ingredients ready. And what we're going to use is 2 summer squashes. So I have here a yellow squash and a zucchini. And I don't particularly care for the skin of yellow squash. I find it to be a little bit tough and just a little bit thick. And I also don't really love the seeds in yellow squash. So what I've done is I've sliced this in half and I've scooped out the seeds. But that's a personal choice. If you want to use the yellow zucchini whole the way it is, you can do that. Now or the yellow squash, the zucchini I'm just using as is. I find the skin to be very thin and tender, and there really are no seeds to speak of. So I'm going to use that as is. So what we're going to do with this is grate them, and I'm just going to use a hand grater. You can use a food processor if you want to, but this doesn't take too long with a hand grater. So you just grate them, and these are raw, they're not cooked. You're just going to grate both of them down. And you can also just use 2 zucchini, or you could use 2 yellow squash. And even the quantity is up to you. I normally do this recipe with a pound of pasta, and I find 2 squashes is enough for a pound of pasta, but you might like a little bit more. Tonight, I only cooked a half a pound because this is just for demo purposes. So this is actually going to be a lot of squash, but it's kind of like whatever you like. If you have a lot of zucchini in your garden to use up or from your CSA, you might want to add a little bit more. And when we add it to the hot pasta, it's not exactly going to cook it, but it will kind of wilt it. So we're just going to get all that yellow squash grated. You can see I hope you can see this. Move my wrap out of the way. It's a lot, but it sort of just disappears into the pasta. And get the last little bit of that. And then the ends I just kind of discard. Okay, and then I also have here 3 more tablespoons of nutritional yeast. I'm going to put that into the finished dish. And then 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, fresh lemon juice. That's about the juice from 1 lemon. And I have some fresh basil leaves here. Now I would recommend in my recipe about a 1/4 cup of fresh basil leaves, in addition to what you already put on the roasted tomatoes. I put 2 tablespoons on the roasted tomatoes and then another 1/4 cup for the pasta. But since I'm just going to be making up 1 plate for tonight, I'm just going to use a few. So when your tomatoes and your garlic are done and you've cooked your pound of pasta and kept it warm on the stove, you're going to put that into a bowl. Let's move that over here. And I have used brown rice fusilli. I really like to use fusilli or rotini because I like the way the squashes kind of nestle in the folds of the pasta. And again, I've only cooked a half a pound instead of a pound just so I could demo this. Then you're going to take your garlic, which is hopefully cool by now, and you're going to just squeeze it into the hot pasta. And you're going to see, I hope you can see that all of those nice, this is still pretty hot. I'm going to actually hold it with a paper towel. All those nice cloves, which are soft and gooey now, will just drop out right into the pasta. And you want to try to not get the papery part of the garlic clove into your pasta. That's not going to taste really great. So you just can use a spoon to get the last little bit. And then what you want to do is kind of just mush that, and it almost just melts into the hot pasta. It's almost like a cream. And actually, if you really like garlic a lot, you could put 2 bulbs in. I've done that before. I really like garlic. If you don't want it to be too garlicky, stick with 1. Okay, and then all we're going to do is add to that our tomatoes. And I'm just going to pick up my parchment paper and dump that right in. And get all of that last little bit off there. Give that a stir. And you're going to add in all of your squash. And your nutritional yeast, 3 tablespoons. And your 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. And just stir to combine. Really super simple and easy. And then I'm going to show you how this looks on a plate, and we're going to put some fresh basil on top. We want to get all of the squash kind of mixed in. Let's get rid of this. Okay, and we're going to plate this. It smells so good when those tomatoes are roasting. I wish you could smell my kitchen right now. It's really amazing. And then what I do is, rather than mix the basil into the pasta, I like it to be kind of fresh right on top. And what I use are these herb shears. These are like special scissors with 5 blades for cutting delicate herbs. I find that with some herbs like cilantro and basil and parsley, when you chop them, they can get kind of a dark color, sort of unappetizing looking and maybe a little bit watery. But if you use these herb shears, then you get these really nice ribbons of basil on top, and they're all in equal size, and they stay nice and green. And it comes with this handy little tool that you can just scrape out the additional basil that's in the blades. And I'm going to just distribute it along the top there a little, and it's absolutely beautiful. Can you see this? With the fresh basil on top. Great. Okay, so that is the pasta with zucchini, roasted tomatoes, and roasted garlic. And next we are going to do our summer fruit salsa sandwich. Now, this sandwich is a little bit different because you're probably used to having tomato salsa with, you know, onions and green pepper and maybe some lemon juice or lime juice. This is still going to be a little bit tangy and spicy, but also sweet because we're going to use fruit. So for this recipe, because it's a sandwich, the base of the sandwich is going to be some tofu. And I have here about half a box of tofu sliced, 1/4 inch thick. I usually use a whole box of tofu, maybe 14-ounce box. But again, for demonstration purposes tonight, we're just going to do half a box. And I use a large fry pan, and I heat that over medium. And to the pan, we're going to add a tablespoon of low sodium tamari soy sauce. And I don't cook with any oil, so I use nonstick pans. But if you don't have nonstick pans and things begin to stick, you can just add a little bit of water to the pan. And the soy sauce helps prevent things from sticking also. So we're gonna let that heat for a minute. And then I'm just gonna show you what fruit we're gonna use for this while that's heating up. I have here 2 plums and 2 nectarines cut into chunks. And then I'm also going to use a mango, which I'll show you how to cut. And I'm going to use raspberries and wild blueberries. And that's going to be our fruit. So first, while you're making your fruit salsa, you might as well be cooking your tofu. So you're going to add that to the pan. And on top of that, you're going to add a tablespoon of minced fresh ginger and 2 cloves of garlic minced. And you want to just kind of get it distributed over the tops of all of your tofu slabs. And if a little bit, is dropping into the pan, that's fine too, because it'll get picked up as you flip these over. You're going to cook those on each side about maybe 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes. And while that's cooking, we can make our fruit salsa. So let's cut the mango first. I think most of you know that a mango has like a really large pit in the middle that runs the whole length. And what you want to do is figure out where the pit is running. And usually it goes down widthwise. So you kind of look at the mango and pick out the side that's like a little bit wider. And that's the side you want to cut down. Because if you go this way, you're going to be cutting into the pit. So let's see if I'm right that this side will cut. Yep. And then the other side, the wide side, we're going to cut that down. And that's going to give you the meat of your mango. The rest of it really doesn't have much fruit on it. So these are your 2 halves with your fruit. And then what I do is I simply score it this way and go across this way. Oop, don't let it fall out of your hand. And then we just take a spoon and scoop out the chunks. And I'm going to put that right in the same bowl with my nectarines and my plums. So you just pull all that out of there. And we're going to do the same with the other half. I'm going to score it. Lengthwise and widthwise so that I have some chunks. And then just simply scoop it away from the skin. Now, the next thing that we're going to do is we need to chop this fruit a little bit finer. We have it in chunks, but I want this to be kind of like the consistency of salsa, like a typical tomato salsa. So I'm going to use the food processor. Now you can do this by hand if you don't have a food processor. I just find that the food processor gets it like a little bit more consistent in terms of the size of the pieces. So we're just going to dump all that in there. But if you don't have a food processor, just chop it until it's kind of juicy and the consistency of salsa. And you really only need to pulse this. If you run the machine too long, you're going to end up with puree, and we don't want that. So we're just going to pulse it about 8 to 10 times. And I don't have my blade. Sorry. Wait 1 sec, guys. I forgot to put my blade in. And while we're doing that, we're going to flip the tofu over. About 3 minutes per side is enough.
We do have a question. I'll just ask you while you're doing that.
Sure.
Someone asked about buying champagne mangoes, and they buy them because they're not as fibrous, and they wanted to know if that variety is creamy as well. or would it work in this recipe?
Yeah, I think it would. I'm not as familiar with that variety. That's not the one that's like green, is it? As long as it's a little bit soft, you know, I don't think this would work super well with something like an apple, unless you cooked it. But as long as the mango is a little bit soft, you know, that you can just kind of easily slice it with a knife, I think it would work fine. Unless it's really bitter, and then it might not be great. So we're just going to pulse this. Okay. And here's what we end up with. I'll show you the consistency so you can kind of see, just chunky and sort of watery, but not pureed. And then we're going to put that into a bowl. Let's get that off there. We'll get all of this out of here. And actually, the more ripe your fruit is, the better this turns out, because it gets really juicy then. So if you have some fruit that's actually getting overripe, this would be a good recipe to use that. All right, now to that, we're going to add, I have here a cup of fresh raspberries. You could use frozen raspberries. And if you use frozen, you want to defrost them first and keep the juice. Add the juice right into with your raspberries. But these are fresh, and I haven't chopped them. They're small enough that they'll be a nice size for this. So I'm just going to dump those in. And then I have a half a cup of wild blueberries. And these were frozen, and I've defrosted them. So I'm going to add them with their juice. And I like the wild blueberries because they're like really, really tiny. I don't know if you can see that. And so they're a very nice size for this fruit salsa. So we're going to dump that in. And we'll just give that a stir to mix everything up. And then, let me just show you what that's looking like. So you can see it's starting to look like a salsa consistency. Now we have to add a little bit of tanginess to this. So we're going to add a teaspoon of fresh minced ginger. Just check that my tofu is not burning. It's looking pretty good, so we'll turn that down. So that's a teaspoon of fresh minced ginger. And I have here a tablespoon of fresh lemon juice. And we're going to add, this is optional, but I really like it. I'm going to add a pinch of crushed red pepper flakes. Crushed red pepper flakes, just a pinch, unless you like it really spicy, and then you can add more than a pinch, but I'm just going to add a pinch in there. And if you use salt in your cooking, you can add a pinch of salt. I'm just going to leave that out for tonight, but I've used a pinch of salt before. And then to balance that sort of spice or tang that we added, we're going to add a half a tablespoon of maple syrup. And you could also use agave or I guess date syrup, but I just really like the taste of the maple syrup. So we're going to add half a tablespoon of that. Okay, and we're going to just mix that all up. And it's really going to be, this is one of my absolute favorite sandwiches. So I'll show you here now what this looks like. Very kind of salsa-y, if that's a word. Just nice and sort of soft and got a lot of liquid in it. Now we're going to use this on a sandwich. So we're going to take 2 slices of toasted bread, which I toasted before we started tonight. And I'm just using a whole grain bread. This is Ezekiel bread. I don't make my own bread, but I do like Ezekiel. So I'm using that. And what we're going to do is we're going to put 2 slices of tofu on the bread. And my recipe, as I have it on my website, is for 4 sandwiches. But like I said, tonight I just made enough for 2, just for demo purposes. So you're going to put 2 slices of the tofu on the bread. And you want to get, you might be able to see this, I have some of this really nice ginger and garlic that gets kind of caramelized a little bit from the pan. And you want to make sure you get that, some of that on your tofu also. You can just kind of scoop it up out of the pan and put that on your bread or on your tofu. We'll turn that off. And then you're going to put 2 tablespoons, about or to taste of the fruit salsa on top of the tofu. I find 2 tablespoons is a good amount because then it's not running out of the sandwich exactly, but you sure can definitely taste it. And I just kind of spread it out over the tofu. Maybe just get a little bit more there. And then I like to cut it. That's up to you, but I find sandwiches are just a little easier to cut. And then I can show you the inside too. If I cut this. And there you have it, your fruit salsa sandwich with tofu. Now, some people don't want to eat tofu, or they don't like it, or they're maybe a little bit intolerant of soy. And I was thinking you could probably do this with something else. Like, I thought hearts of palm would actually be kind of nice. And you could just slice hearts of palm and maybe do the same thing, put a little ginger and garlic on them, and then put that as your base of the sandwich, and then your fruit salsa on top of that. And it's a really surprising taste, but it's kind of addictive. I love it. Now, if you don't want to make a sandwich out of this salsa, you're going to have a lot left, as you can see in my bowl here. This is great just on toast instead of jelly, or it's really good as a dip with corn chips or pita chips. So it's got a lot of uses. You could even put it on, a lot of us make nice cream out of bananas, and you could just put it as like a fruit topping on nice cream. Okay, so that's the summer fruit salsa sandwich. And finally, we have our Fiesta corn salad. Now, for that, this is really, really an easy recipe. I think you can make this in about 15 minutes. But you're going to start with 2 ears of corn. This serves 2 as a main dish or 4 as a side. You can double the quantities if you have more people, but I'm making it for 2 as a main dish. You're going to start with 2 ears of corn that you've husked and rinsed. I find rinsing the corn gets a lot of the silk off. And then you're going to cut the kernels off of the ear of corn. This is uncooked corn. You haven't cooked it yet. So I've already done it with one of the ears, but I wanted to show you a technique that I learned from another blogger about how to get the corn off without it kind of jumping all over your kitchen. If you've ever sliced down corn before, it has a tendency to fly everywhere. So you take a bundt pan, if you have a bundt pan, and you hold your corn in the center hole of the bundt pan, and then you just start slicing down. Hopefully you can see me here. I'm right-handed, so it's a little hard. And I don't go all the way from the top, because I do find that the corn's going to start jumping around if I do that. So I kind of start maybe a third of the way up from the bottom. And you're just going to keep turning this and slicing off the kernels, and your bundt pan catches all the corn for you. So it serves as a way to not only get the corn to stay in one place, but now you have it in a bowl that you're going to be able to add right to your pan from here. And I did lose one piece. I'm going to get that all off. And you can even, partway through, you can even flip it around and do it the other way so that you don't have to go all the way down from the top. So get all these kernels off. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we are going to sear this corn in a pan, in a pretty hot pan. Add our pan here, turn it up, with onions and a jalapeno pepper. And I have here, this is 1 large onion. I'd say it's probably a little more than a cup, maybe a cup and a quarter, that I've diced. And then I have 1 jalapeno pepper, which I've already split and I've seeded. You know, the seeds are very hot, so I've taken the seeds out, and now we're going to mince this. And I'm not super fussy about the size of my pieces. So what I do is I just slice lengthwise into thin slices, and then, so I have about 4 or 5 skinny little slices from each half of the jalapeno pepper. And then we just we just group those together, and then I just go across like this. And I say minced, but you know, it can just be kind of finely chopped too. You don't have to get it real small. And that's it. So we're going to add our corn, which is all nicely caught in this bundt pan. We're going to add that to the hot pan. Get all that out of there. And we're going to add our onions. One large yellow onion. You could use any kind of onion, but I just always seem to use yellow. And then we're going to add that, that jalapeno we just chopped too. And you are going to sear this for about, I find it takes about maybe 7-8 minutes. And what you want is for the corn and the onions to just turn a little bit brown. I really should be using a bigger pan, but I used my big pan for the tofu. So there you go. And again, this is a non-stick pan. I find that, you know, there's enough moisture in the onion that things will not stick, but if you find it sticking too much, you could add a little bit of water to your pan. So while that's cooking, we're going to get the rest of our ingredients ready. I have here 1 can of black beans that I've drained and rinsed. And if you make your own beans, this would just be about 1.5 cups. So black beans. And then I have a 1/2 cup of grape tomatoes. I like these small tomatoes. You could use cherry tomatoes too, or you could just cut up a tomato and use chunks of tomato. We're going to cut those in half. And I have 1/2 of a green pepper, and it's a pretty large green pepper. And I have already removed the seeds from these pieces, so we're going to chop that up. And I have the juice of a lime. It's a pretty big lime, so I've got like, I don't know, almost 1/4 cup here probably. And then some fresh cilantro for our garnish. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the pasta. I'm going to snip it over the top at the end, because that's just a nice presentation, and it doesn't get all kind of wilty by mixing in with everything else. So while this is cooking, and just give it a stir every once in a while, I can see that the corn is already starting to brown. And I have my pan up pretty high, kind of medium high, not all the way to high, but medium high. You want it to be pretty hot. Okay, so now we're just going to cut up our green pepper. And I just do the same thing with this that I did with the jalapeno. I just cut it into strips, like rough strips, and then collect up my strips and slice it down. And again, I'm not super fussy about the size of my pieces. Maybe some people like them bigger, some like them smaller. It's whatever you like. And so we get that all diced. And we're going to do this, not the same with the tomatoes, but we are going to cut them in half. I like everything to be in kind of bite-sized pieces. I don't like to have, you know, salads with big chunks of food that you really can't fit in your mouth. So I like everything to be kind of bite-sized. So I am going to cut the tomatoes in half. Use a different knife for that. And I like to do them lengthwise rather than across. I just think they look nice, and you can see the inside of the tomato really nicely. So I do them lengthwise in half. And this is 1/2 cup. It's probably about 12 grape tomatoes. And I know a lot of people grow these in their garden. These are very easy to grow. So are peppers, for that matter. So hopefully you all have some. If not, they're easy enough to get. Okay, so that's all cut up. And we're going to put that into a large bowl. We're going to stir our corn and onions one more time to make sure that we're getting it evenly browned. Yep, it's getting nice and brown. So we're going to add the black beans to the bowl and all of our green pepper and our tomatoes. And then we'll add the lime juice in after we take this off. So now you can see, I'm going to bring it over. You can see that this has gotten a nice kind of caramelized golden brownish color to both the onions and to the corn. And it takes about, it depends on your stove, maybe 6, 7, 8 minutes. Okay, so we're going to add that to our bowl with our fresh cold ingredients. And I really like the combination in food of warm and cold together. I do that a lot. And now we're just going to give that a stir, get that all combined, and add our lime juice. Again, this is the juice of 1 lime. And that's all there is to this. And now we're going to plate it. And then I will use my herb shears again to put some cilantro on top. And if you don't, I know some people don't like cilantro. You could just use parsley or whatever herb you like. I do think that cilantro gives this a really nice flavor. I happen to be one of those people that loves cilantro, but I know some people say it tastes like soap to them. So if you're one of those, try to use parsley. Okay, and then I'm going to take, again, for 2 people, I would probably use about a 1/4 cup of cilantro. And we're just going to, you just hold it. And I often use the stems as well because I think they have a lot of flavor. And you're just going to use your herb scissors if you have them. If you don't, you can chop it. And just right over the top of this. And we're going to use our tool to get that out. And I like to save a couple of the whole leaves for the top just because it looks nice. I like presentation as far as that goes. And that's it, Fiesta corn salad. It's hot and cold at the same time with the cooked corn and onions, along with the tomatoes and the beans and the green pepper that's cold. And it just makes a really, really nice fresh summer lunch or a light dinner. It's one of our favorite summer things, especially as corn is coming into season now. And that is it. I wish you all could taste this food. It smells wonderful in this kitchen right now. You're just gonna have to take my word for it that it's all delicious. I'm gonna eat all of this as soon as we're done tonight. My husband and I will. And hopefully you'll try one of these recipes, or at least it might inspire you in ways that you can use your summer produce. If you want the recipes, as Sally said, they're going to be on the YouTube channel and on my website, resolvehealthandfitness.com. Just click on recipes and you can check it out, and you'll find a lot of other recipes there as well that use summer produce. So that's it. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
You have to see, I just wanted to tell you, Alexandra, these people's comments about how beautiful, all 3 dishes look so beautiful and tasteful.
Good. I'm so glad.
You really did a great job. And thank you. One of them, Corey, wants to know, do you eat the Fiesta salad by itself?
I do. It's pretty filling. I mean, this is what I would eat as 1 portion. And that would be lunch for me. Now, if I was going to have this for dinner, I might do this with like a bowl of fruit, or maybe like some kind of roll or bread with it, just a little something extra. But for lunch, this would be my lunch. I've done this many times just for lunch. Yep, a full plate of this. It's very filling. It's wonderful. It smells great. And with the summer fruit salsa sandwich, I often eat that for lunch. And again, with that, I might have something a little extra with it, maybe a small side salad, like a little green salad or something like that, or some, I have a kale slaw, not coleslaw, but kale slaw recipe on my website that I really like to have with that sandwich. Yeah. And with the pasta, we always serve that with a green salad, always. Pasta and green salads just go hand in hand. So I like to do that.
And all the ingredients are readily accessible. So that's someone
Yes.
just commented that
Yep.
that's, yeah,
Yep.
it's a
Yeah.
very practical.
I know like nutritional yeast might be the only thing that could be hard if you live in like a rural area, but you can get it on Amazon. They have it on Amazon. I think that might be the only ingredient that's a little bit different. But yeah, it's on Amazon. As oh, the herb shears are on Amazon too. I meant to say that. These are Wistoff. But if you there's other brands I think that are a little less expensive, but they're available on Amazon. And I have a link on my website. At the top of my website, it says cool kitchen products, things that I like to use, and you can find it there too.
Yeah, I'm like Lainey. I never knew that there were special scissors to cut herbs. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they really do a nice job for the delicate herbs. I use them for delicate herbs, not so much for like rosemary or something like that. But yeah, for the soft leafy herbs.
So I'm looking. Unless I missed, does somebody else have a question or comment? We did, Alexandra. Brittany put the recipes and the link to your webpage
Great.
in the chat room.
Oh, good.
We'll get
Okay. Yeah, because I know we went through them a little fast. Wanted to make sure we got all 3 done in the allotted time. But they're all 3 are so easy. I mean,
Yes.
you do a little bit of prep and then it just comes together quickly. And I'm kind of all about easy. Sometimes I like to do things a little more complicated, but mostly what I cook is generally you can do in 30 minutes.
So Melina just asked, do you just develop these recipes intuitively? What's your process?
Well, yeah, so I usually think of things either that I used to eat before I was plant-based, and how can I make that healthier? How can I make it work for healthy plant-based now? So sometimes, like I have a potato salad on my website that I tried to make it taste as much like my mother's potato salad that I had when I was growing up, that was all kind of mayonnaise-y and, had eggs in it and everything. And then I just kind of veganized that. Sometimes if I've had food at a restaurant that I really liked, I try to recreate it at home. But I would say most of the time, I just take ingredients that I really like, or that I have to use up, and I just start throwing things together. That's kind of how that pasta came about. Several years ago when I was in a CSA, my zucchini and tomatoes were really starting to pile up in my kitchen. So I said, how can I use these? And I just started to put things together that I like, combinations that I like. I love tomatoes that are roasted. So yeah, usually it's just things I like. Let's throw them together. Let's put in herbs and spices that I like and see what comes out. It's not always successful. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But I only put the ones that I think were successful on the website. Yeah.
Have you always enjoyed cooking?
I have. Ever since I was a child, I was always following my mother around in the kitchen. She would let me help. She even bought me one of those little child kitchen sets, that children play on with the fake pots and pans. And She bought me one of those. And yeah, ever since I can remember, like really small, I love to be in the kitchen and cook. Yeah. I started to actually kind of do my own thing when I was around 12 years old. My parents would leave me alone on Saturday evenings while they went out and say, make your dinner. And I would, put something together.
Well, I have to say, your joy of cooking reflects when you do this demonstration, because you make watching very joyful. So
thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. Enjoyable. Yeah, I really hope you all enjoyed it and feel a little bit inspired now to use up what's in your gardens and in your CSA or just in your grocery store, because there's lots of local produce now out there. And yeah, you can even take one of my recipes and use it as a springboard and add things to it that you like or subtract. Yeah. So thank you everybody for joining me tonight. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah. And Melina, you asked what brought, if you go to resolvehealthandfitness.com, you will see Alexandra's story and a lot of useful information there that she's sharing with you, and you can contact her if need be.
Yep. Yep. That would be great. Yep. Like you
Okay.
can email me, text me. Yep. I'm on Facebook, Resolve Health and Fitness. I'm on Pinterest and Instagram. So you can reach me a lot of ways.
Well, I thank you again, Alexandra. It's been a delight.
Thank
So
you, Sally. Thanks for having me so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
And thank you for everyone coming as far as way as from Alaska and California and wherever else.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much for joining.
Good night, everyone.